The orphanage was a dark and lonely place. Little did young Thomas know, life was about to get much worse. He was adopted by a couple, the Millers. They weren't kind. They were cruel and treated him like a burden. Each day was filled with chores, beatings, and harsh words. Thomas was a small boy with big brown eyes that held a sadness beyond his years. He learned to move quietly, to avoid their wrath. But often it wasn't enough. The sting of their slaps and the burn of their words were a constant reminder of his unwanted existence. He longed for a loving touch, a kind word, but those were luxuries he couldn't afford. So he endured, his spirit slowly withering under their tyranny. He clung to the hope that one day things would change, that one day he would find his place in the world. School became his only sanctuary. While other children dreaded the classroom, Thomas embraced it. Books became his escape, each page a portal to a world far removed from his own. He devoured stories of courageous heroes and fantastical creatures, finding solace in their adventures. His mind was sharp, his thirst for knowledge insatiable. He excelled in his studies, his grades a testament to his dedication. Teachers, noticing his intelligence and eagerness to learn, encouraged him. They saw a spark in him, a resilience that hardship couldn't extinguish. At night, when the Millers retreated to their own devices, Thomas would sneak out to the living room. Under the dim glow of a single lamp, he would lose himself in his books. The outside world faded away, replaced by the magic of stories. He learned about history, science, and art, his mind expanding with each passing day. One day, a new janitor started at the school. His name was Albert, and he was an old, hunched man with a gentle smile and kind eyes. He spoke little, his presence almost invisible. But Thomas noticed him, saw the weariness in his movements, the way he seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. Albert reminded Thomas of the forgotten heroes in his books, the ones who toiled tirelessly in the background, unnoticed and unappreciated. He felt drawn to the old man, sensing a kindred spirit. He began seeking him out, offering a helping hand with his chores, engaging him in quiet conversation. Albert, initially hesitant, warmed up to the boy's genuine kindness. He saw in Thomas a purity of heart, a lack of judgment that was rare in the world. He shared stories of his life, tales of adventure and hardship, of love and loss. Thomas listened intently, his young mind soaking up the wisdom in the old man's words. One rainy afternoon, Thomas saw a group of older boys taunting Albert. They were laughing at his worn clothes, his slow movements. Thomas felt a surge of anger, a protectiveness he hadn't realized he possessed. Without hesitation, he stepped in front of Albert, shielding him from their cruelty. "Leave him alone!" he shouted, his voice small but firm. The bullies were taken aback by his defiance. They scoffed and sneered, but Thomas stood his ground. He wouldn't let them hurt Albert, not while he could still stand. Seeing the boy's unwavering loyalty, Albert felt a warmth spread through his old heart. He had been alone for so long, had forgotten the feeling of being cared for. He placed a hand on Thomas's shoulder, his eyes twinkling with gratitude. The bullies, realizing their game was up, eventually wandered off, their laughter fading into the distance. As their bond deepened, Albert became a mentor to Thomas, a source of guidance and support. He taught him the importance of humility, of treating everyone with respect, regardless of their social standing. He instilled in him the belief that true wealth lay not in material possessions, but in the richness of one's character. Albert, despite his apparent poverty, possessed a quiet dignity, a serenity that fascinated Thomas. He never complained about his lot in life, never begrudged those who were better off. He found joy in the simple things, a warm cup of tea, the sound of birdsong, a shared moment of laughter. Thomas, accustomed to the miller's constant focus on material possessions, found Albert's perspective refreshing. He began to see the world through different eyes, to appreciate the beauty in the everyday, the value in human connection. He realized that kindness, compassion, and integrity were far more precious than any amount of money. Despite his own limited resources, Thomas insisted on sharing what little he had with Albert. He would bring him extra food from home, sneak him small gifts he found at flea markets. He even started saving his meager allowance, determined to buy Albert a new coat for winter. Albert, touched by the boy's generosity, tried to refuse, but Thomas wouldn't hear of it. He argued that true friendship meant sharing, that it brought him joy to see Albert smile. Albert, realizing he couldn't dissuade him, accepted his gifts with grace, his heart overflowing with affection for this extraordinary boy. Their evenings were often spent together, sharing simple meals, playing board games, or just talking. Albert regaled Thomas with stories of his travels, his encounters with different cultures, his observations on human nature. Thomas, in turn, confided in Albert about his dreams, his fears, his longing for a different life. Years passed. Thomas graduated high school with honors, a testament to his hard work and determination. He received a scholarship to a prestigious university, a dream he had once thought impossible. He was finally free from the miller's tyranny, ready to embrace a future filled with promise. One day, while unpacking in his dorm room, he received a letter. It was from a law firm, requesting his presence at their office. Confused and a little apprehensive, Thomas went to the address provided. He was ushered into a luxurious office where a distinguished-looking lawyer greeted him warmly. The lawyer explained that he represented the estate of Mr. Albert Smith, recently deceased. Thomas's heart sank. Albert was gone. He felt a pang of grief, a sense of loss that surprised him with its intensity. He had no idea how Albert had died, but he mourned the absence of his friend, his mentor. The lawyer continued, explaining that Albert wasn't who he seemed. He wasn't a humble janitor. He was the CEO of a multinational corporation, a self-made millionaire who had spent his later years living a life of anonymity, seeking genuine connection. And then came the most shocking revelation of all. Albert had left his entire estate to Thomas. The lawyer presented him with a document, the last will and testament of Albert Smith, leaving his vast fortune, his company, everything he owned, to the boy who had shown him kindness and compassion. Thomas was stunned. He couldn't believe it. He, a boy who had grown up with nothing, was now one of the wealthiest people he knew. But as the initial shock wore off, a different feeling took hold. It wasn't elation or greed, but a profound sense of peace. He realized that the true inheritance wasn't the money, but the lessons Albert had taught him. He had learned that kindness, humility, and empathy were far more valuable than any material possession. He had discovered the transformative power of human connection, the importance of valuing people for who they are, not for what they own. Thomas used his newfound wealth to honor Albert's memory. He established a foundation in his name, supporting education, arts, and social justice initiatives. He lived a life of purpose, guided by the values Albert had instilled in him. And though Albert was gone, his spirit lived on in the heart of the boy he had befriended, a testament to the enduring power of kindness and the extraordinary bonds that can form between two souls, even in the most unexpected of circumstances.